So my whole life, I was sick. I had diseases, every kind of disease, I had them. So I remember when I was living at my house, at my dad's house, he used to say hello in the morning. Hi, good morning. How are you? What's your new disease?
Tell Us How to Make It Better is partnering with the Readiness Lab, the home for podcasts, webinars, and training in the field of emergency and disaster services. I'm George Siegel, and this is the Tell Us How to Make It Better podcast. Every week, we introduce you to people who are working on real-world problems and providing actual solutions. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me on today's Tell Us How to Make It Better podcast. I'm one of those people that would probably be defined as a picky eater. Gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, try to eat as clean as possible, don't always get that accomplished. Well, there's a whole other area of eating that I never thought about that my guest today is going to talk about, and that is eating in a way that is sustainable. My guest today is Ximena Yáñez Soto. She spent more than 20 years as the CFO of a Mexican environmental fund, now an award-winning and certified international health coach. She's the author of the book, Healthy Planet, Healthy You, Simple Habits to Create a Brighter Future. Ximena, welcome. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, George. Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be in your program.
Absolutely. Now, tell us the problem that you've identified and what you think we need to do to make it better.
Okay, let me explain it from the beginning, a short story. But I worked for 23 years in an environmental fund in Mexico City. So I moved 7 years ago to Denver, Colorado. So I knew that that chapter of my life was over. So I had to look for something new, because I could go to another organization like the fund I worked in, but I wanted to do something different, because when I was the CFO of this environmental fund, I used to work behind the computer and set all the rules, and I didn't care about people's feelings or thoughts. I was just like, this is a new rule, and people would come to me, why? We don't want to do that. I don't care. If you don't do that, there's the door, you can walk out the door. So they called me Dr. No. It was a secret, but I knew they called me Dr. No. So when I moved, I said, let's see what I can do. So my whole life, I was sick. I had diseases, every kind of disease, I had them. So I remember when I was living at my house, at my dad's house, he used to say hello in the morning. Hi, good morning. How are you? What's your new disease? Because every day I had something different, and I went to see a lot of doctors and a lot of pills and meds and things. And once I had a wake-up call when I was feeling bad, like 2 or 3 years ago, before I had these depressions, 2 episodes of a severe depression. So I went to see my psychiatrist, and I told her, please give me something. And she said, you know what? I think this is something different. You should see a cardiologist. So I went to the cardiologist. I didn't want to, but I went, and she did some tests. And I had POTS, which stands for postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And the thing is that somehow the blood vessels, they're weak, and they can't bring blood again to the heart and then to the brain. So many people faint. But in my case, my heart was just working hard. So I was very, very tired. So she told me back then, you have to take a pill for the rest of your life. And then she also diagnosed high cholesterol. And she said, you have to take 2 pills for the rest of your life. And I was used to pills and meds, but not for the rest of my life. I was used to take them for a couple of weeks, maybe a month, and that was it. So this was a wake-up call. I had 2 little girls, and I was like, I don't want to be dependent on a medicine for the rest of my life. And I asked her, isn't there a diet? I can switch my diet and then get healthier. And she said, there's no connection between diet and health. And something inside of me said, that's not true. And then she said, okay, but give it a try. Try it for 2 months, and then you come back and we'll see. So I went, I read a lot, I did some research, and then I came back 2 months later, and she was like, what did you do? What you did is what all my patients have to do. I was feeling better than ever. I was just a new person. So when I was thinking, what can I do when I moved to Denver? And I thought, what about, studying something like to become a health coach and then help people in that are suffering the same way I suffered many, many years ago to live happy and healthy lives. So I was in between jobs, and I wanted to connect these two worlds, the environmental world and the health world, because there's a connection, obviously. And I said, well, what might be the connection? So I was going through, the UN papers about climate change and what we can do. And in between lines, I read something that caught my eye. It said, reduce red meat consumption. And I said, I want to research on that. I want to go into that and see what's the thing. The UN is saying reduce red meat consumption. Why? So I started doing this research. And what I found, I said, I have to share this with the world. That's why I wrote my book. But what I found doing all this research is, the question is, how can we expect to be healthy if our diet is not sustainable with the planet we call home? So that's the thing I found. That's the problem I found. And I think it's very easy. The solution is simple. We know it. It's not easy. Simple and easy are not the same, but it's a simple solution. It's not going to be easy, but we can do a lot for the planet with that solution.
Okay, there's a couple things that come up during the story that I find that are interesting. I mean, probably more than a couple things. First of all, it's very surprising that a doctor would be so dismissive of how there are other things you could do besides just taking medicine. That in itself is very disappointing. I've had doctors that have said that along the way too. It's usually the old school guys that say vitamins don't matter. What you really need to do is this, this, and this. And it's disappointing when you hear that because it's pretty ignorant.
Yeah. And I didn't know back then, I didn't know anything about, I didn't know that what you eat is important for your body because nobody taught me that. I had to learn. And I see that happens a lot with people. They don't know that because if everybody knew, we wouldn't be eating. Humanity wouldn't be eating the way we eat. So actually, we don't know. And many, many doctors, they're just into surgeries or pills. That's what they do.
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
You want to go
and nobody would be eating Nutella anymore or stuff like that. And then I saw this, I guess they're called holistic doctors or whatever, the chiropractor doctors, whatever the category is. But this guy told me, he had me get a blood test and he showed me all the things I shouldn't be eating anymore that cause inflammation in your body. Yeah. And when I stopped eating those things, my health improved dramatically. So I definitely believe the connection. But let's talk a little bit more about the connection in your book. I'll be honest with you, I haven't had a chance to read the book, but I have a sense of what it's about. So tell me what the connection is. Connect the dots here for how this makes a difference for us.
Well, that I'm telling you that the diet is not sustainable with the planet. We eat a lot of animal protein. That's the reality. We eat animal protein more than 3 times per day, at least 3 times per day, because we have been told by our doctors or our parents or neighbors or friends or everybody is telling us, eat your proteins. And if I ask you, if I say the word protein, what comes to your mind?
Wow. Would that be things that are in meat?
Yeah, most people answer with that: meat, chicken, fish.
But you're going to tell me there's other foods that I'm getting protein in that I don't know about.
Okay. We don't know. That's the thing. Nobody taught us. Actually, proteins, I'm going to break it down for you. Proteins are just long chains of a thing called amino acids. So when you have a long chain of amino acids, you have a protein. The way our stomach works is that we eat the proteins and the stomach breaks the links in between the amino acids, and your body stores the amino acids. And then your body is a protein factory. Your body builds the protein you need according to your DNA requirements and information. So it's not that you eat the piece of meat and then the protein there is going to go somewhere in your body. Your body is going to build those proteins. The thing is, science has discovered 20 amino acids. Our bodies can make 11 of them. But 9, we have to get them from what we eat. And of course, a complete protein, we call complete proteins, those foods that have those 9 essential amino acids, which are meat and cheese and chicken and all of those things. But everything that grows from the ground, from the soil, has also chains of amino acids. We call them incomplete proteins, but because depends on the family of foods, they lack one of the 9 essential amino acids. So can we live without one of the essential amino acids? No, we can't. We need the 9 essential amino acids. The thing is that if you combine different food families, let's say fruits and seeds or legumes and seeds, you will have a complete protein. You will have all the 9 essential amino acids, and you don't need to eat them in the same meal. Your body will have all those 9 essential amino acids, and then it will be able to build the proteins you need. So we've been living a lie. Of course, the food industry, they want to make money. That's what they're aiming for. They're not aiming for health or for a better planet, a healthier planet. They're aiming to become more profitable. So they're telling us that the only way we get our proteins are animal products. And that's a lie. If we combine, that's called protein complementation. If we combine all different plant foods, we can have complete proteins.
So do you eat no animal products at all? Is that completely out of your diet?
The only thing I still eat, and I wouldn't say don't eat animal products. The thing is, we eat a lot of animal products. And to sustain that demand, we use these things called industrial farms. And if everybody in the planet ate the same way we eat in the US or in Mexico, a lot of animal products, we would need 7 planet Earths to supply that demand. So I still eat a little cheese, a little bit of cheese. My family, we're plant-based. So we mostly eat plants, and some other day they eat meat or whatever they like chicken if they like chicken. So it's not like don't eat animals. We can eat animals, but not in the way we're eating animals right now.
Okay, well, here's where it's a problem for somebody like me, because I'm gluten-free, soy-free, dairy-free. But when I go to the store and I look at plant-based things that are for sale in the market and you read what's in them, that ends up being a pretty toxic little package of food, in my opinion, with some of the oils they put in to make that, or some of the fillers they put in to make it. So tell me how you eat, because I'm curious to learn this, but I think I would starve to death if I just said, okay, I'm eliminating this completely. And if I tried to buy the plant stuff, that has a lot of it just looks like it's not that healthy.
Well, plant-based processed foods are still processed foods. So, food is information for our bodies. So we have the good information, the really best information that comes from fruits. And we have the really zero bad information that comes from processed foods. So plant-based, whatever you read, vegan, gluten-free, whatever, if it's processed, it's processed. It has zero beneficial information. So it doesn't matter if it's not plant-based or it's not gluten-free, it's just the same. Processed foods are just the same. So I'm gluten-free too. So I eat a lot of plants. I eat legumes, a lot of legumes, lentils, chickpeas. Sometimes instead of a steak, I have a cauliflower steak. I can do a lot of recipes with gluten-free noodles. They're made of rice or rice. for example, yesterday, I'm going to tell you what we ate yesterday. We ate
Yeah, I would love to know because I'm starving just thinking about what you must be going through.
a beautiful artichoke with nothing. Just I prepared something with olive oil, a little bit of tamari sauce, the one that has no gluten, soy sauce with no gluten, and a little bit of lime. And that was the thing I used to bring some flavor to the artichoke. And then we ate some chiles rellenos, which are stuffed chili peppers, with lentils that I cooked with spinach and coconut milk and tomatoes and onions and cilantro. So that was inside of the chili. And then a side of, it could be, sometimes I use Brussels sprouts that I steam, and then I use almost the same salsa sauce that I told you I used for the artichoke. But yesterday we used steamed rice. So, and you can go with the one that's not white, the whole
Brown
rice. Yeah. So
now, do you have to make all this stuff? Do you cook it? Because I'm not a cook, and so
yeah.
I have a few friends that are like you that sound like they know how to cook, and so eating like that, you can make it clean. But if I went to go buy that someplace, and I found a few places online, what happens is they send it to you frozen, and it's a small portion, so you're starving after you eat it. So I have my plant-based dinner, and then I want to eat a bag of chips or something because I'm so freaking hungry after that.
Well,
So
there's a trick. There's a trick. And yeah, I cook now. When I lived in Mexico, you are used to have help in the house. So I used to say that I burned the water. Like I couldn't cook anything. So I came to the US and haha, surprise, you have to start cooking. So I started from knowing nothing. I didn't know anything about how to cook. So I started like that. The thing is that you can have some tricks to feel fuller. One of the tricks I always tell my clients is, because we're used to it a lot and we don't need that much. We're eating more than needed. So in order to bring your stomach to a normal size, you have to start like little by little. But when you're used to eat a lot of stuff, you can start with a big salad, a huge salad, like with all of the colors. You can have lettuce and you can have some cabbage and tomatoes and cucumbers, cilantro, everything you like, with a little bit of olive oil, salt, and lemon. But make it a big plate. And then go for the other thing. And you'll see you have no space, because what we're doing right now, for example, animal products, they don't have fiber. That's one thing. Plants, they have fiber. They will make you feel satisfied. And we're leaving that when we eat a lot of animal products, and I'm not saying they're the worst for our bodies. The worst are processed foods. Animal proteins are in between plants and processed foods. The thing is that when you eat a lot of animal products, you're leaving out a lot of things that have great information for your body, like antioxidants and vitamins and minerals, which are fruits and vegetables. So when you start with a big salad plate, you are giving your body something that loves, because for some reason during evolution, we have grown with these species of plants. They've grown with us at the same time. Now we're eating things that we just invented 20, 30 years ago that have no information, not good information for our body. So when you eat these plants, this salad, your body is getting all the information it needs to work and be healthy, to work at its best.
now, when you buy your fruits and vegetables, do you only get organic?
I try to. There's a list in them. I think the page is called the EWG, the Environmental Working Group. And you can find there, every year they do some research, and they see I think they call it the dirty dozen. So they see which fruits and vegetables are the ones with most pesticides and herbicides and all of those things. And they recommend you to eat those 12 to go organic. So I don't buy, for example, organic avocados or organic bananas. I go for the apples or maybe the peaches and maybe the grapes, because those are the ones with more, residues of pesticides and herbicides.
Now, I always like to ask my guests what the biggest challenge is and what they're doing. I think it's obvious what your challenge is, and that's people don't want to do it. They like eating the crap that they eat. People want to eat hot dogs and hamburgers. People still go to McDonald's and KFC, that's a whole
Yeah.
other subject. How do you change people's minds? Do they need a health scare? What does it take to get people to pick up your book and go, I'm going to change?
Yeah. First of all, we need to bring awareness and consciousness. So the thing is that we are destroying the planet. 1/3 of the greenhouse gas emissions, they come from agriculture, from having these animals in these industrial farms. We are 8 billion people in the planet, almost 8 billion people in the planet. And the 96% of the mass of all mammals in the planet are us and the livestock we have domesticated. 96% of the mammals. So that's, we're not working to be biodiverse. We're working to keep it close. And if we don't have biodiversity, at some point we're not going to make it. So that's one thing. We have to bring awareness. The other thing is we're sicker than ever. Our kids, when we were kids, we didn't hear about, diabetes or heart problems with the kids or liver problems. And now our kids are obese and they're sicker. I've read different opinions. They say that our kids are going to live longer than us, but in worse conditions. I read that this is the first generation, at least my girls, that are going to live less than our generation. So it's divided. But see what we're doing to the planet, what we're doing to our kids. And climate change. It's a huge component, 1/3 of the greenhouse gas emissions. And because we're feeding these animals, the things we feed them, which are not the natural food for them, it's seeds and grains, and we're planting them. And we're doing this in huge expanses of space, of land. And we're just, it's the same crop over and over and over. So we have no biodiversity. And we're losing biodiversity in the soils. So the soil is a very important component for trapping carbon, again, from the atmosphere to the soil, to the ground, to bring it down to earth. And we're also depleting the seas from marine animals, which are also a carbon sink. So the way we live and the way we're always trying to satisfy our urgent needs. We're not thinking about the future. We're not thinking about our health, our children, the things that could start going if we start doing differently, planting differently, having diversity in crops. That will heal the soils, and the soils will be able to capture carbon from the atmosphere. So we're talking about a huge component of climate change.
Yeah, I mean, as you meet people and you talk about this, which reason maybe gets them to do action? I mean, if you told me, hey, eat better because you're going to help the environment, eat better because you're going to reverse climate change, I would look at you and go, no.
Yeah,
but if you said your health is at stake and you could live an extra 20 years, I'm all in. I'm like, okay, tell me what to do.
You know what saddens me is I'm doing this because of our kids. I had a dream in between when I was wondering what to do when I came to Denver. First, I saw Greta Thunberg. I think you know who she is. Yeah. So she was giving this speech to politicians and corporations. And she was saying, what the are you doing? You're leaving us an unlivable planet. What are you thinking? You have to start doing something for my generation. And my girls are her generation. So I was like, but I'm working in an environmental fund, so I'm doing my part. So I was like, oh, I'm doing my part. But that question kept haunting me for months. Like, what am I doing? I'm doing my part. I'm working in this environmental fund behind the computer, doing my numbers. And one night I had this dream. I dreamt of a girl. I think she had like red as ice, on fire. She was very mad. And in dreams, you generally know, you don't know people, but you know that you know them in such a way, or their family. So I thought she was kind of family. And she was very mad. And I was like, okay, don't worry, everything's going to be all right. And then she turned to me and asked me, if I ask you something, will you tell me the truth? And I was like, of course. She was very sad and mad. And she said, when you could, did you do everything in your power to reverse climate change? And in that moment, I just woke up and started crying. And I was like, I'm not doing everything I can. I'm working behind a computer. I should be telling people what to do. The thing is, I'm doing this because there's an old saying that goes, we didn't inherit the earth from our ancestors. We, oh my goodness, the word. We didn't inherit planet from our ancestors. We borrowed it from our children. And we're not doing that. We're not thinking about our children. And we say we love them and there's nothing we wouldn't do for them. And the only thing we should be doing, because in 10 years, they're not going to be worrying about getting the job of their dreams. They're going to be totally focused about climate. We're not doing the only thing. And you should know that because you have the documentary about we're being parents without knowing. The only thing we should be thinking about is giving them a place to live. And we're not doing that.
Now,
So-
when you change your kids' diet, tell me how that went over, because my kids eat terribly. I mean, they eat ramen noodles and which you could throw ramen noodles in the ground and uncover them 100 years from now and they would still be intact. The same with things like Nutella and just horrible stuff. How do you just take it out of the house? Because then they're just going to sneak it when they go to their friend's house.
Things, but it's not about everything or nothing. That's the thing the thing is simple. The change is simple. It's not easy. So there's people that will go like from day to night and do 180% degree change in their lives. But that's not about it. It's about understanding. So if you start talking to your kids, food is information for your body. Do you want to be healthy? Yes, I want to be healthy. So, for example, my daughters, they know if they don't have the perfect diet. We're plant-based and sometimes they eat animal products. We have cheese in the house. Sometimes my little daughter wants turkey breast and I buy a little bit because it's good to have. It's good to not just be in one side of the possibilities. So, but for example, if they get sick, they know they're going to start with fruits. Like that's the only thing they're going to eat while they're sick because they know and they have felt it. They feel better when they eat fruits and vegetables. So it's a thing you have to try it on yourself and you have to talk your children through it. And taste, it's something that you learn and can change.
Do you eat fish?
You can change. I don't eat fish because the seas are so polluted with mercury. And I had a thing going on with mercury a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and I'm so sorry. There's people that say it's from it's salmon from Norway. The seas are all the same polluted with mercury, and we are this is a fascinating number. In the US, we kill every year 9 billion animals for human consumption. We're 8 billion people in the world. In the US, we kill 9 billion animals every year. And the global figure is 53 billion animals every year. And this figure does not include marine animals. Marine animals are like 5 times that amount. So we are depleting the seas, and the seas are becoming warmer and warmer, and they're unable to capture carbon from the atmosphere because we eat a lot of animals. This is not sustainable, not sustainable.
It's
Just the
interesting.
animals.
A buddy of mine sent me a TikTok video this morning, and it was about Costco chickens. And they have a $4.99 whole chicken that they sell. But if you read the ingredients that are in this thing, that is one toxic bird. Plus, it's raised in a chicken sweatshop. And my rule of thumb is if there's ingredients I don't know what they are,
Yeah.
why am I buying that? I like the chickens, even though you probably don't eat this, but maybe you do sometimes. When I go to Whole Foods, the chicken has 2 ingredients in it, or to Sprouts, it's chicken and salt and water whatever they do. So it is possible to get a better choice.
It's possible. There's a thing called most of our food come from industrial farms. They treat the animals in horrific ways. They have to give them antibiotics because they're sick, because they're not eating their natural food. As in fish farms also, they swim in their feces and they're eating also pellets. So these animals are sick. So they have to have antibiotics, and they give them hormones so they can grow faster and look better for the consumers. So we're eating sick animals. Now, there's another way of farming, which is holistic farming or regenerative farming. And this goes hand in hand with sustainability. They leave all the animals just to graze freely. They eat the grass. There are a lot of plant species around. So this is a place more like nature, not the things we have invented to hoard animals or plants. So with these are our healthier animals. They're healthy actually. So we can eat them. The only thing with that is that we couldn't eat the way we eat right now with holistic farms because they wouldn't be able to supply the actual demand for animal proteins. So we should eat them eventually, like in the blue zones. About the blue zones, in those places where people live more than 100 years. There's one here in California, in Loma Linda, and there's one in Costa Rica, and one in Italy, one in Greece, and the other one is Okinawa, in Japan. These people, some of them, they don't eat animals, but some of them, they use animal products just as a garnish on their plates. They're more plant-based. So if you want to be healthier, eat plant-based. You can eat a little bit of animal protein, and having these holistic farms, which are better for the environment, wouldn't allow us to eat the way we eat now. It wouldn't be, there's no room. Like for every carnivore, this planet was not designed to sustain large carnivores. For every carnivore in the African savanna, there are 100 prey animals that require a lot of space. So every time you are eating animals, you are demanding a huge spans of space from the planet.
Are there recipes in the book? If I pick up the book, so I'll be able to start eating like that?
I have 16 recipes. They were made by a plant-based Mexican chef. We have some Mexican recipes, but also Asian, and they're great. You wouldn't believe you have no meat in there. So
I want to believe that. I want to.
Yeah, believe that, because it's true. Sometimes I invite people and I cook as I cook, and then they say, "This is delicious. Are you sure this doesn't have any animal products?" No.
See, we just tried a new company that I saw online, and they delivered the meals the first week. And out of 6 meals, 4 of them were packaged poorly. So the sauce broke in them, or they weren't all the same size. They just looked different. So it was really disappointing. So I definitely want to check that out. If you had to give some advice to any entrepreneurs out there, you kind of reinvented yourself. You went from Mexico City to Denver and started something completely new, what would you tell somebody who has an idea of something that they want to do and solve a problem and make things better for the rest of us?
Yeah, I would go for something that has to do with cooking, maybe for people that don't have the time. But I should say, make the time for cooking, because that's one of the most important things of your life. What you're bringing to your body, those are the building blocks for your body. So it's not a minor thing. Cooking is a blessing. So if you can spend half an hour, 45 minutes, some of these recipes in my book, they're 45 minutes. It won't take more than that, because you can touch the ingredients, you can touch the onion, and there's something going on when you touch them. There's an exchange of energy and things that are happening when you touch the carrots or you touch the lentils. There's something going on. And I've read, I don't know if this is true, it happens when you plant your own things. In my case, I have some like sage or thyme or cilantro. If I have them, and you tend them, you're gonna start exchanging some information, and they're gonna all their chemicals are gonna arrange in a way that they're good for you, because they can sense you, they read you. So what happens when you touch an onion, when you touch an apple, you're giving information to that plant, and it's changing its chemical composition for you. So that's what everybody says when you're cooking. That's what's happening. You're exchanging energy.
Well, that's a little out there. I mean, I've seen a lot of unhealthy looking chefs that are obviously touching a lot of food. Maybe they're touching the wrong food. But my question was really more along the lines of, like, to other entrepreneurs, somebody who has an idea and maybe they're living someplace, they want to do something different. What would you say to give them a kick in the tail to say, go out there and try your idea? It worked for me. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I think what worked for me is I review my life and the things I didn't want in that moment. In that moment, I felt like nobody loved me because, yeah, I was like I had something in between people and me, like, you have to do this. I don't care about you. I don't care. So that was the thing I didn't like. And then I was like, what things have happened? What am I an expert on? Like, I was an expert on changing diet and seeing with my own eyes how I had always had a deteriorating health, and suddenly I was strong and healthy, and I was feeling like never before in my life. So what has worked for you? Where are you an expert? Because everybody has experiences. You are an expert in something because in your life you live that. Maybe you're an expert in sorrow, for example, or pain, like spiritual pain or something like that. So use that. If you want to change, use the things that work for you, that you know. Look at the things that you don't like anymore, you don't want anymore in your life, and bring that together. That worked for me. And then I started finding these things, and now I have a book. I never thought I would write a book, and now I have a book, and I'm trying to bring this knowledge to people. We can do something. We have this decade to do something for our kids. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna until I'm tired, and even if nobody listens, I'm gonna keep telling people we have to change. We have to change ourselves, our economies, our societies. Imagine if all consumers team up to change our diets. It's not about politicians anymore, like making the rules. It's about us demanding them. And if they don't change, we can change the demand and supply chain, because we're changing from the bottom. So it's the bottom-up revolution. That's it. We change, and then our economies and societies will change.
Now, the book is called Healthy Planet, Healthy You, Simple Habits to Create a Brighter Future. Where do people get the book, and how can they find you?
Yeah, well, the book is on Amazon. So there. And they can find me. I have a website, www.what, believetransformb.com. Believe Transform Be as a single word.
I'll put it in the show notes too,
Thank
so
you.
people
Thank
can
you.
see it. And then you're on all social media platforms. They can find you.
If you go to my website, you can find the links to my social media.
All right. Well, I got to check out the book just to see those recipes because I'm running out of food to eat.
They're amazing,
Great.
and we can do it. I know. I did it. I didn't know how to boil water.
No, that's
Thank
certainly
you.
a motivational example. I mean, I love hearing stories from people that actually have done something and they swear by it and it's actually good for people. I mean, I can think of no reasons not to do it other than the time it takes
Yeah.
to do it. And what you're saying is that's really not a good excuse.
It's not a good excuse. Check the time you are in your socials. Checking. You have the time. You have 45 minutes.
All right.
And
Ximena,
it
thank you
will
so much
be
for coming
great.
on today. I appreciate your time and I look forward to reading your book.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was really a great experience. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on today's Tell Us How to Make It Better podcast. If you liked what you were listening to, please share the link with your friends. You can even leave a review online. And if you have ideas for future guests, there's the contact form on our website, tellushowtomakeitbetter.com. And I would value hearing from you any thoughts that you have about the program. Once again, thanks for listening. See you next time.